The cookie that was meant to be shared. In the cheerful little town of Maple Hollow, there was a bakery that everybody knew, even if they didn't always visit it. It sat on the corner of Willow Street with a wide front window and a painted sign that read, Maple's Oven, baked with care. Every morning, the smell of warm bread, cinnamon, and sugar drifted through the air like a friendly wave, curled around lampposts and slipping into open windows. People often said that if you followed your nose, you'd end up at Maple's Oven, and they were always right. Inside the bakery, rows of golden loaves rested on wooden shelves, pied cool near the windows. On the counter, and the cookies, oh, the cookies sat proudly in glass jars, each one perfectly round and slightly uneven, just the way homemade cookies should be. Among all those cookies, well, there was one cookie that stood out. Not because it was bigger, not because it was more chocolate chips, but because it felt different. This cookie lay on a small plate near the back of the counter, still warm from the oven. It was soft in the middle, lightly crisp on the edges, and dotted with just the right number of chocolate chips, even enough to be exciting, but not too many so that they crowded each other. If cookies could think, and this one certainly did, it would be smiling. This, the cookie thought proudly, is what perfection feels like. The same morning, a boy named Oliver rushed into the bakery with his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. Oliver was 8 years old, with bright, curious eyes and shoelaces that were almost always untied. He stopped short when he saw the display case. "Whoa," he whispered. Mabel the baker chuckled from behind the counter. "Good morning, Oliver. You look like you've discovered treasure." Oliver pressed his hands to the glass. "It smells like happiness in here." "That's the sugar talking," Mabel said with a wink. Oliver had come with his mother, who was chatting with Mabel about flour deliveries and weather forecasts. Oliver wandered closer to the counter and spotted the cookie on the small plate. "That one," he said, pointing. "Why is that cookie all by itself?" Mabel glanced at it and smiled softly. "That one's special." Oliver's eyes widened. "Special how?" "Well," Mabel said, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret, "sometimes a cookie's known it's meant for something important." Oliver didn't fully understand, but he nodded anyway. Important cookies made sense somehow. "Can I have it?" he asked. Mabel studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I think you can." She placed the cookie carefully in a small paper bag and handed it to him. "But remember," she said gently, "good things have a way of becoming even better when shared." Oliver smiled, thanked her, and skipped off out the door. Inside the bag, the cookie felt the movement, the gentle sway, the bounce of Oliver's steps, the warmth of his hands holding it tight. "So," the cookie thought, "this is my big moment." The cookie imagined being eaten right away. One happy bite, maybe two. A job well done. But Oliver didn't open the bag. Instead, he walked down the street towards the park, where laughter echoed and birds hopped up along the grass. He sat on a bench and pulled out the bag. Then stopped. Across from him, a little girl sat alone on the swing. Her feet barely touched the ground, and she kicked at the dirt slowly, her head down. Oliver frowned. He recognized her from school. Her name was Lena, and she had moved to Maple Hollow just a few weeks earlier. Oliver looked at the cookie bag, then at Lena, then back at the cookie. The cookie felt a strange flutter. Wait, "What's happening?" Oliver stood up and walked over. "Hi," he said. "Do you want a cookie?" Lena looked surprised. "Really?" "Yes," Oliver said. "It's a really good one." He opened the bag and held it out. The cookie held its breath. Lena smiled, a small smile at first, then a bigger one. She took the cookie, broke it clearly in half, and handed one piece back to Oliver. "Sharing makes it better," she said. The cookie felt something new, as if it was split. Not pain, not loss, but pride. As Oliver and Lena finished the cookie, crumbs dusted their fingers. The park seemed a little brighter. The sun peeked through the clouds, and the swing creaked gently as Lena pushed off again. "You know," Lena said quietly, "this is my favorite cookie I've ever had." Oliver grinned. "Mine too." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching a pair of squirrels chase each other around a tree. Oliver swung his legs and thought about how close he had been to eating the cookie all by himself. Inside, the memory of the cookie, if such a thing could exist, there was a feeling of being exactly where it belonged. Later that evening, Oliver walked home humming softly. When he reached his front steps, he noticed something unusual. Mrs. Finch, the elderly woman who lived next door, was struggling with a heavy grocery bag. One of the handles had torn and the apples rolled across the sidewalk. Without thinking, Oliver dropped his backpack and rushed over. "I can help," he said. Mrs. Finch looked surprised. "Well, thank you, young man." As Oliver gathered the apples, he felt the same warm feeling he had felt in the park. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet and steady, like knowing you were doing the right thing. When Oliver went inside, his mother noticed his smile. "You look happy," she said. "I am," Oliver replied. "I shared something today." His mother nodded thoughtfully. Sharing has a way of doing that. That afternoon, Oliver and Lena sat together again, talking about favorite books and silly pets. The cookie was already gone, but the laughter wasn't. And when the moment passed, something lingered. Warm joy, a new friendship. Later that day, Lena went home smiling. When her mother asked why, Lena said, "Someone shared with me today." His mother smiled too and baked extra muffins for the neighbors. One neighbor, feeling lighter than usual, brought soup to an elderly man down the street. The man, grateful, fixed a broken fence for a family who couldn't do it for themselves. And on it went. Small acts, quiet kindnesses, all rippled outward. The next morning at school, Oliver noticed something else. Lena was no longer sitting alone. She was laughing with two other kids, her hands moving as she told a story. When she saw Oliver, she waved. At recess, one of the kids tripped and scraped their knee. Without even being asked, Lena sat beside them until the teacher came. Oliver watched surprised. "It's like it's spreading," he thought. The next week, Oliver returned to the bakery. Mabel greeted him with a knowing look. "How was the cookie?" Oliver smiled. "It was different." "Different how?" she asked. "It didn't feel like it was just mine," she said. "It felt like it wanted to be shared." Mabel laughed softly. "Some things do." That day, Oliver brought 2 cookies, one for himself, one for later. On the walk home, he saw a boy sitting on the curb, clearly upset. Oliver paused. He didn't hesitate. "Hey," he said, holding out the cookie. "Want to share?" The boy looked up, surprised, then smiled. Back at Mabel's oven, another batch of cookies cooled on the rack. Each one warm, each one delicious. But every now and then one felt a little different, but not because it was better, not because it was meant to remind someone of something important. that joy grows when shared, that kindness doesn't shrink when given away, and that sometimes the smallest things, like a cookie, can make the biggest difference. And somewhere, whenever cookies go after they're eaten, there's one very special cookie would have smiled. The moral of the story is cookies were meant to be shared as the kindness that grows when we share what we have. Even small acts, offering a smile, sharing a treat, or including someone else's who feels alone, can create happiness that spreads far beyond the moment. When we choose generosity over keeping things just for ourselves, we discover that giving doesn't take away from us, it adds to everyone.